can't make anything out of it. Yeah, I just can't seem to figure out what's going on here. Hello there once again, friends and enemies, and welcome back to Card Game Review, where today we're going to be talking about the anime with the most. It's the anime with the kid that gets the book that comes with the guy that's not human. We all love and know it. It's Zatch Bell. I just hit my light fixture. Zatch Bell was an anime that premiered in the early 2000s about a middle schooler named Kyo who one day received a book that came with a little kid named Zatch. Zatch is a Mamoto, a demon child, and every 100 years the demon children are sent from the Mamoto homeworld down to the human planet in order to battle it out to see who will become king of the Mamotos. Genuinely speaking, it's a pretty good anime if you like shonen. It's not the best anime that's out there, but it is still really fun to go along with. At least, I believe if you're reading the manga. If you're watching the anime, you're hearing Jimmy Neutron's voice come out of an anime character.
Thanks, Tia! You really helped me out when you put up that shield at the end.
And with the popularity of the Zatch Bell anime came a Zatch Bell card game, the Zatch Bell TCG, which I actually really like. I started collecting the Zatch Bell card game when I was in middle school. I was a Zatch Bell fan at that point in time, but I had only been exposed to a few episodes of the anime. I've kept my cards since then, but more recently I actually decided to read the Zatch Bell manga since the anime doesn't cover the full Zatch Bell story, and the anime is kind of hard to get in America anyway. But we're here to talk about the card game. So what's the deal with the Zatch Bell card game? The Zatch Bell card game ran alongside of the anime. It was built specifically off of the anime, and because the anime never finished or got all that popular here in America, we in the West only got some of the card game. Its run didn't last very long, only giving us about half of the sets that the Japanese card game has, although to be fair, the card game is a little bit weird. And while I personally believe that the card game's weirdness added into its non-popularity, it is also very interesting in the way that the card game presents itself. So let's go ahead and get into the deck building and how the game works. Zatch Bell is a unique card game in the way that you make your deck in the order that you want to play it. Essentially, you get to stack your deck, and you put your deck into this little spell book. This Zatch Bell spellbook holds 32 cards in total. You get a 32 card deck, and you can choose which pages have which cards. Your 32 card deck is going to be made up of 5 basic types of cards: Mamoto, Partner, and Majestic 12 cards that get played from your book onto the battlefield. You've got your spell cards, which get played onto the battlefield and then discarded, and then you have your event cards, which get played onto the field and then put back into the spellbook. Mamoto cards have a power value in the lower left-hand corner of their card, and next to their effects they can have an A or a D symbol, A for attack, D for defense, which tells you the priority of your card in a turn, which we'll talk about during the gameplay section. Partner cards may have a little symbol next to their effects that tell you when that effect is allowed to happen. Both spell and event cards will have a card cost in the upper right hand corner, which is the amount of MP that you would pay in order to play that card. Under this cost, there will either be an A or a D symbol, or both, to tell you when you get priority to play those cards. And on spell cards, the lower left hand corner will have a power value, which is the amount of power that it adds to the attacking Mamoto, and the lower right hand corner will have a damage value, which is the amount of damage that this spell will do to the opponent's spellbook. Honestly, not a lot to look at in terms of cards, so let's go ahead, take a look at the gameplay, and see how this game plays. The field setup for Zatch Bell is fairly simple. We have our spellbook with our deck in our hand. We've got 3 spots for our Mamoto cards, and below them we have 3 spots for partner cards. We have an area to hold our magical points, our MP that we will be gaining, and we have an area to discard. You start the game by opening up your book and turning to page 1 and pulling out your Mamoto, which should be the first card in your book. Each player starts with a Mamoto on the field. We will then turn to the next page in the book, this being our true page 1, and then we decide the turn order and start the game. The player going first starts their turn as the attacker, and we enter the start phase. During the start phase, we can choose to turn up to 3 pages in our book if we'd like. For each page that we turn, we gain 2 MP. We can also choose not to turn any pages and we gain no MP. It's important to note that once a page is turned, you cannot turn backwards in the book order. And of course, we can activate any effects that would be activated during this part of the turn. Next, we enter our battle phase. During this phase, there are a number of things we can do. We can play a Mamoto card, a partner card, or an MJ12 card from our spellbook, placing our Mamoto cards and our partner cards in the appropriate zone, whereas Majestic 12 cards get put kind of outside of the game area. It's important to note that out of these 2 types of cards, we cannot have 2 cards of the same name on the field. So with my Xeno out, I can place a Zatch Bell next to him, but I cannot place another Xeno. During this point, we can also play any event cards or any spell cards that are done before battle. Since we are the attacker, we can only play cards that have an A symbol on them. If they have a D symbol on them, we would have to be the defender in order to play them. It is also important to note that we can only play 1 event card during each turn. And remember, all of these cards that we're playing are only coming from our currently open page in our spellbook. Now, as long as our Mamoto are out on the field, if we have a spell card that a Mamoto can play, we can play an attack spell. In order to start battle, I will play my Zatch for my Zatch Bell card. In this instance, I will be declaring an attack towards my opponent, and I will pay the MP for the cost of the card. At this point in time, my opponent can choose to play a defensive spell from their spellbook. If the defending player does not have a spell in their open page, they must concede the battle and take damage. If the player does have a spell, then both players add up the total power of their spells with their Mamotos, and then compare the total power between the Mamotos. The player with the highest power wins the battle. If the attacking player wins a battle against a defending player, that attacking player deals their total damage on their spell to the opposing player. The defending player will take a look at the damage dealt on the bottom right-hand corner of the card, and then take that amount of damage to their spellbook for the game. Zatch does 1 damage, so we flip 1 page. If our defending player does not want to take damage to their spellbook, they can choose to protect their spellbook, injuring their Mamoto by turning it horizontally. Once in injured status, a Mamoto cannot be changed back unless by a card effect. If the defending player has multiple Mamotos on their board, and our Zatch Bell is attacking their Xeno, they can choose to protect their Mamoto by sacrificing another, meaning that another Mamoto would become injured in order to protect the Mamoto that is being attacked. Now, it is important to note that each battle during the battle phase is individual, so we can only play 1 spell card at a time, and that concludes 1 battle. If that battle ends, we can play another spell card from our open page in our spellbook and conduct another battle. After the battle phase, we enter the end phase. Any effects that activate during the end phase happen here, and the player of the turn must turn a page in their spellbook at the end of the phase. It is important to note that during either player's battle phase, if a player reaches the last page of their book, they can play the final spell in their book without paying the MP cost. And if there are no Mamotos on the field, a player cannot activate any effects or do anything that requires a Mamoto during their battle phase. If your opponent has reached the final page of their spellbook and are required to turn a page but cannot, then you have won Zatch Bell. And there we have Zatch Bell. seeing the game in action is a little bit interesting. The game is very obviously meant to work the way that Mamoto battles in the anime work, but they don't exactly work how you'd expect them to. You're supposed to be the partner to the Mamoto that comes out, not exactly their partner, as is shown in gameplay. One problem with this game is that it does fall into the same trap that most card games fall into, where it has such simple game design that it is very easy to overthink how the game is meant to be played and think about, what if this was a rule? What if this was a rule? And because the game is discontinued, there's no one to really tell you about the rules of the game, but really, you don't need to overthink it all. You just need to look at the card and do what it says with your basic knowledge of the gameplay. Now, getting your hands on the Zatch Bell TCG is a little bit difficult. There is an online simulator in Tabletop Simulator. There is a mod if you would like to play through there, if you're able to get it. Other than that, getting Zatch Bell cards can range from being very, very inexpensive to being wildly expensive if you're searching for certain sets. And unfortunately, unlike most card games, this is not mitigated if you are able to read Japanese, because those sets never came out here. They are a rarity for us, so they are still cards that are pretty expensive. So if you would like to get the card game, it is always in your best bet to either get the starter set or cards that are within the first or second set of the Zatch Bell card game, because these are the easiest to get your hands on. Not to mention anything about the spell books either. The spell books themselves, if you would like a different color from the standard colors, can range to crazy prices. I said before that the Zatch Bell card game doesn't follow the manga and only follows the anime. However, they do have Clear Notes, Clear Notebook. Upon finding this out, I thought it'd be a fun collector's item to go and get, and I looked up for it, and it is the most expensive card game accessory I have ever seen. I'm not paying that much for a little cardboard and plastic spellbook. I would love it though. As for fun, I feel like Zatch Bell's really only fun if you understand the way that the game is meant to be played. If you really don't, it can get kind of boring, I think. And even on top of that, attempting to play with my friends before, upon first reading the rules, it was a little bit confusing to me on how the game was meant to be played. I understand it a little more now, having read them a few more times, but the first read through kind of scrambled my brain a little bit, if I'm being honest. Although to be fair, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. All that smushed together, I think that Zatch Bell could be fun if you are already a fan of Zatch Bell, although I do think that the limited number of cards we have in the English TCG, as well as the rules just being a little bit stale feeling, at least in my opinion, can make the card game a little bit not great to play. Although, with the resurgence of Zatch Bell in Zatch Bell 2 being released as of last year, I think it'd be great to see a Zatch Bell card game resurgence and maybe see some new stuff come out of this game. Maybe we can even get a Battle Spirit Saga type reboot where they just give us a new revised version of the game that feels a little bit better to play. That being said, if you like role-playing while you're playing card games, I think Zatch Bell could be the card game for you. I'm gonna go ahead and give Zatch Bell a 5 out of 10. I want to rate it lower than that, but I think this game is fine if you're a fan of anime card games, especially. And that is all I have to say for Zatch Bell. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have you played Zatch Bell before? If you have, let me know what you thought about the game, and if you haven't, let me know how you feel about what I've shown you here today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope the video was good, and until next time, drink your water.